If you want to start songwriting, but right now you don't really know any instruments that really lend themselves to songwriting. So for example, if you're somebody that was in band or orchestra in high school, maybe you know how to play the flute or the violin or the cello or the double bass. If you are somebody like that wants to get into songwriting and you can't decide, should I pick up the guitar or should I pick up the piano? This video is for you because we are going to talk through why you should choose each and what are the main benefits of each so you can make the decision for yourself what is the right instrument for you. Even if you're not interested in songwriting and you just want to figure out, hey, I want to learn an instrument, I'm pretty sure I want to learn either piano or guitar, which one should I choose? This is still going to be helpful for you. And if you are the third type of person, which is a singer-songwriter, somebody who already knows how to songwrite, somebody who's already into songwriting, and you know one of these instruments and you want reasons why you should maybe also learn the other one, this video is also for you because, spoiler alert, I actually think the correct answer is to learn both over time, but the question is which one should you learn or start to learn now? Let's get into it. The first factor that we want to talk about is learning, or how fast it is and easy it is to learn an instrument. And as far as ease to learn, I think guitar takes this one. It's very feasible to me that somebody who has never played an instrument before could pick up the guitar and within 3 to 6 months be competent enough to at least perform a song live. With the piano, that's going to be a lot harder to do. There's a steeper learning curve when it comes to the piano. Another factor here is normally the piano is definitely an instrument where you really kind of need lessons a little more badly than you need lessons for guitar. Guitar is sort of one of those quintessential self-teaching instruments, and at least in my experience as somebody who has had lessons in both instruments and also done some self-teaching in both instruments, personally I think it is much, much easier to self-teach with the guitar, and I think this shows itself in other areas. There are very few people I know who are competent at the piano who weren't people who had piano lessons. I know almost nobody who fits in that category, but I know plenty of people who are quite good guitarists that have never taken a lesson. So if one of your goals is to just quickly get to the point that you can perform a song live, or quickly get to the point where you feel competent enough that you just feel good about what you're doing and you feel like, man, this is already fun, I would say guitar wins in that department, and guitar might be the instrument for you. Criteria number 2. Playing or performing. One criteria to look at here is which instrument is easier to play while you sing, because specifically if we're talking about this from the perspective of a singer-songwriter or somebody who wants to be a singer-songwriter or just somebody who wants to perform singing while also playing, a large reason you might want to learn one of these two instruments is to be that person, right? So for example, you normally wouldn't sing and play violin at the same time, and you certainly can't sing and play flute at the same time. So if you're a person that's like, hey, I played this band or orchestra instrument before, but now I know I need to learn an instrument that a singer-songwriter would traditionally use, which one is easier? I would say this is another area where specifically here, guitar is easier. I know a lot of people who are competent at both, and usually what happens if that person is given a choice to either play guitar and sing or play piano and sing, overwhelmingly most people are going to choose to do the guitar and sing. It tends to lend itself a little bit more to playing and singing at the same time. Now this is going to depend somewhat, but generally speaking we're talking about rhythm guitar, not doing solos while you sing. Doing solos while you sing is much more difficult, and then it becomes more of a discussion. At that point, maybe playing piano at the same time is easier, but for most of us, if we are going to sing and play at the same time, we're going to be doing rhythm guitar, where we're mostly doing chords. And I think guitar is clearly easier when it comes to being able to play and sing at the same time. Another part of this playing and performing criteria is where you can play and how easy it is to transport your instrument. And again here, I actually think guitar also wins in this department because, hey, if you have an acoustic guitar, you can take it anywhere. You can take it to the beach, you can take it like campfire songs, right? You can do all that sort of stuff, and it's not even really inconvenient, where with a piano, you can't really move a piano, and then with a keyboard, well, you need electricity, you need a plug, and most people, if they're gonna gather around the campfire and play some songs, are probably not gonna lug out their keyboard, get the plug, get an extension cord, and do all the different stuff that they're going to need to do. An acoustic guitar, you could be out in the middle of nowhere, not a single person, not a single plug within thousands of miles, and guess what? The acoustic guitar is going to sound just as good and be just as perfect for you in that scenario as it is going to be in any other scenario. So when it comes to playing live and going to open mics and stuff like that, it is always going to be much, much easier to have the guitar. And then a third criteria that I think fits into this playing practicing is actually how well you can fit into a band depending on your skills. So your average band has at least one guitarist, usually two, right? You have a rhythm guitarist, you have a lead guitarist, you have a bass guitarist, you have a drummer, and then a pianist. So a 5-piece band on average is probably going to look something like that. A lot of bands, though, don't have piano at all. In that case, having skills with the guitar would make you a viable member of the band for 3 of the 4 spots. Because if you're a competent guitar player, you should be able to do the rhythm guitar and the lead guitar, but also bass guitar in a lot of cases can actually be somebody who is just a guitarist. Now, to be clear, I am not saying that playing bass is just watered down guitar. Bass guitarists out there, you guys are great. Bass guitar is an instrument in its own right, but for a lot of bands, the reality is the bass part can be very simple, and in a lot of genres is very simple. So in those cases, for example, a band I was a part of before, we just took the person who was weakest at the guitar and made them the bass guitarist, and it worked fine. Sure, you're not going to have super awesome, great, memorable bass lines, you're not going to have people really slapping the bass, but it works for a lot of cases. So if you learn guitar, you are somebody that is going to fit well into the band in pretty much any role. For example, if you're the lead singer, it will be easy for you to do rhythm guitar, or if you level yourself up enough to be a lead guitarist, there is always a spot for a lead guitarist in most bands. And if you are the weakest guitarist, or if you're somebody that they really want for the singing talent or the songwriting talent, but you're the weakest guitarist there and they don't have a bass player, guess what? You can function as the bass player as well. The only thing you really can't do is drums and piano if you have it, whereas piano skills only translate to, well, the piano. One area within the playing performing category where piano actually wins, in my opinion, and by a pretty wide margin, is when it comes to accompaniment. As far as an individual instrument that can pair with a voice and do the best job and create the most full arrangement, the piano wins by a mile. There's a reason that the term accompanist is almost synonymous with pianist. Yes, technically there are some that are guitarists. Yes, technically there are some that play other instruments, but generally speaking, most accompanists are people who play the piano. So for example, if you're somebody who takes voice lessons or is in a scenario where you need to do a solo concert and you hire an accompanist to play the music for you, it is almost always going to be a pianist, and there are many good reasons for this. The most obvious reason is that the piano is the most effective instrument for really playing a wide variety of parts at the same time. A guitar really is limited to playing one part at the same time. With the piano, you can effectively do a 4-part string quartet all just with the piano. On the piano, you can reasonably play really 8 to 10 keys at the same time because you have all 10 fingers that can work towards doing different things at the same time, unlike the guitar where generally speaking your fingers are forming chords, or maybe you're adding little extra riffs, but for the most part a guitar is much more limited in the parts that you can play at the same time than the piano. Now let's talk about the third category. This category is for writing. When we're talking about writing music, I think there are strengths and weaknesses of both. If what you really care about in your writing is rhythm and chords, then I think guitar might be the better choice. So if you're somebody who really likes good jams and nice little rhythms, guitar might be a slightly better choice because guitar by nature is a fairly rhythmic instrument. And if you think to yourself, what do you imagine when you think of a beginner guitarist? Well, a beginner guitarist is somebody who knows some chords and can play some rhythm. So the basic version of playing guitar is actually rhythm and chords. So it's going to be quick to get there. Again, going back to point 1, it's very feasible that you could start learning guitar, and within 3 to 6 months you can play rhythm guitar, and you can be playing rhythm and chords, and then you singing along. So I think the guitar wins by a little bit when it comes to caring about the combination of chords and rhythm, but if you care about chords and melody more, then piano is the instrument for you. Just like we did with the guitar, let's think about what a beginner pianist is usually doing. A beginner pianist is usually doing basic chords, or maybe single notes in the bass that are representing the bass note, which implies a chord, and in their right hand they're doing a melody. So piano, generally speaking, is a much stronger melodic instrument than a guitar. Yes, I understand that guitarists can solo, but playing a piano melody is frankly basic piano skills, whereas playing a melody on the guitar well tends to be a much higher skill for that instrument. Also, the piano is much better, infinitely better when it comes to arranging and composing. Look, there's a reason that the vast majority of all composers are pianists. Whenever you come across a composer who isn't a pianist, it's almost shocking because basically all of them are. And there's good reasons for this. One reason is that a pianist is used to working with a wide pitch range. The piano has the biggest range of any instrument, and it's an instrument that you can actually play high and low at the same time, even the top note and the bottom note at the same time easily. The guitar is just simply not built for that, whereas the piano is truly built to be able to cover a wide range of notes and play a wide range of notes at the same time. Also, because of the way that a piano is played, you can play a bunch of parts at the same time. Your right hand can be doing something pretty radically different than your left hand, whereas with the guitar, you really only have your left hand that's playing notes, and your right hand is simply sort of deciding the rhythm and doing other things like, picking the notes individually and doing little riff things, but they're not actually playing notes with your right hand. You're playing notes with a combination of your right hand and left hand working together. For frame of reference, I have a song called Whispers of Angels, where it actually has 3 or 4 guitar parts all sort of working at the same time in order to create one main sound, but I can actually play basically all those parts at the same time just with me alone at the piano. I can't play 3 or 4 guitars at the same time though, so that's something that I could only do, and I actually wrote on the piano. I figured out how the main tenor guitar part and the main lower, more bass guitar part work together by actually writing it on the piano, because I can play the high part and the low part at the same time on the piano and hear how they sound together, whereas you can't do that with a guitar unless you magically can play 2 guitars at the same time. So overall, when it comes to writing, I think piano wins, and it is by a landslide. The 4th main criteria that we're going to look at is actually recording. So this one is a little more interesting. I think it really depends, but I do think that the acoustic guitar is probably the most annoying of the main instruments to record, outside of maybe an acoustic drum set, which is definitely more annoying. But recording an acoustic can be kind of a pain. You need to care about the room sounds and things like that. Electric guitar is a lot easier because you can just do direct in, where you actually use amp emulating software in your DAW, in your recording software. And these days, those can actually sound really good. So I think electric guitar is actually quite easy to record, but acoustic guitar is kind of a pain. Bass guitar is also very easy like electric guitar. And like I said before, technically if you're a guitarist, you somewhat get the bass guitar for free. At least you get the ability to play enough on the bass to create a bass part. It might not be very interesting, but it can exist and fill in the mix the way that a bass guitar part is supposed to. But note, for recording those things, you would need to buy an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar, and a bass guitar in order to get those sounds. So you're looking at easily $1,000 or more, depending on the quality that you want to get. On the other side, you can easily get a $300 keyboard that has all 88 keys, and it even has weighted keys for those of us that are pianists at heart and really have a hard time playing when the keys aren't weighted. And it has MIDI connectivity, which, if you don't know what that means, basically what it means is that you are able to record the music in a way that it's actually just recording information, such as how hard you hit a note and what note you hit. So the beauty of this is it's easier to edit that music, and it also can later be changed what sound you're actually using. So for example, I can record a piano part and later say, nah, let's change that sound to strings, and it's a seamless transition. This is also very helpful because if you think of EDM artists, this is an easy way to record all the different parts, because you have a MIDI keyboard, and your one MIDI keyboard can actually write all of the parts. So a lot of your favorite EDM artists, while they probably do have other fancy stuff, it would be very easy for them to create all of the different sounds they're making, the drum kits, everything combined with just a keyboard or synth. So in the category of recording, again, I'm going to actually give the nod to the piano, but it's a more slight nod in this case, and it's going to depend on the context. So for example, if you're somebody who's a part of a rock band and all your music very much relies on guitar, then yes, guitar is still going to win. If you are somebody who maybe doesn't rely so much on the sound of an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar, then keyboard definitely wins in that department. So if you notice, we're actually tied 2-2, and not that this is a competition to win points and to win overall. The goal of this is obviously to talk through why you would choose each, so that you can figure out what is the correct answer for you, because different people watching this video, if this video is done right, are actually going to get different answers, because I'm trying to give you what works better depending on the context. For example, if you don't really care about writing music, well, then you don't care that the piano wins by a landslide when it comes to writing. If you don't really care about actually performing, then you probably care less about the fact that the guitar wins in that department. So to finish out, let's talk about some other criteria that don't really fit into any of these categories. If you are a singer-songwriter, in my opinion, learning piano will actually help you stand out a little bit more, because if you think of a singer-songwriter, probably what you're thinking of in your head is somebody on stage by themselves with an acoustic guitar. So a good way for you to stand out and not seem like just another singer-songwriter is actually to learn the piano instead of the guitar. Also, if you're young and trying to figure out what is the best first instrument to learn, or if you're somebody who wants to learn both of them eventually, or wants to learn more than one instrument in general, then I would recommend the piano, because the piano is much better at teaching foundational musical concepts. Piano generally forces somebody to learn music, music theory, notes, things like that, more so than the guitar. It's pretty easy to be a guitarist who actually just learns chords and just learns chords by their names, or learns chords using tabs. If I were to guess, the very first day that you go into a piano lesson, you are going to see both a bass and a treble clef, and you're going to have to start to learn to read music. On the other hand, I think I took 2 or more years of guitar lessons before seeing any actual musical notation that wasn't just tabs and chords written out. I may be misremembering that, but regardless, it is definitely more common to learn guitar and not actually learn foundational musical concepts. Also, there is some debate about this, but the general consensus that it is easier to learn piano and then learn guitar than it is to go in the other direction. If you are a guitarist, learning piano is going to be harder for you generally than a pianist learning guitar. So if you want to learn both, just know that it's going to be an easier journey if you decide to take the dive and do piano first. Also, as a last note, if you know anything about music majors, people who major in really anything music, you might know that there is one instrument that generally every single music major is encouraged or somewhat forced to learn to play at least somewhat, and that's the piano. So for example, if you are a violin major, you're probably still going to be forced to learn some of the piano. You're not going to be forced to learn guitar though, even though a guitar is actually a stringed instrument and probably closer overall to the violin than the piano is. And you may say, Joseph, who cares? That's just academia. What does that matter? Well, okay, that's fine. But you should also be thinking of, well, maybe there's a reason for that. What is the reason for that? And I think the reason is that it's the most adaptable instrument overall. The piano fits in all the different genres. The piano has 88 keys. The piano, you can play multiple parts at the same time. A single pianist can easily create a much thicker arrangement than 2 guitarists, maybe even 3 guitarists, maybe even 4 guitarists could, all working together. So if you want one single instrument to absolutely kick butt, the piano is probably overall the choice. Now, while I maintain that the answer is going to be different depending on who you are, some people should learn guitar over piano and some people should learn piano over guitar. If you are somebody that is still stuck in the middle and still isn't sure and you want a clear-cut answer, or you want my opinion on if I have to choose and all these criteria, just it still feels like they're even to me. If you're trying to figure it out, the short answer is I think you should go for the piano if you are undecided. But look, my real answer here is that eventually you should learn both. I think both clearly have strengths, and as far as a singer-songwriter is concerned, if you learn both the guitar and the piano, you can basically do anything and everything for a band. For frame of reference, I do play both the piano and the guitar, and really the only thing that I can't record myself is drums. That's it. So all I would have to do now is take the time to learn drums, and I would literally be a one-man band who can record my songs entirely by myself and not really have to rely on anybody else, which is less fun, but hey, it's also easier to just be able to record my songs at 1 o'clock in the morning in my basement without having to have somebody over and set up for them and get them into the song and all that kind of stuff. It's just easier sometimes to be able to do it yourself. And if you learn both the piano and the guitar, you know everything you need to know in order to record pretty much any song except for drums, and hey, you can still program drums. So now that you've decided what instrument you want to start learning so that you can be a singer-songwriter or learn to songwrite, the next step is actually starting to write songs. If you're interested in that, be sure to pick up my free guide on 10 different ways to start writing a song. It gives you 5 different ways to start writing a song from a musical perspective and 5 different ways to start writing a song from a lyrical perspective. Whether you are a seasoned songwriter or a beginner, this should help you, because I am firmly of the opinion that you should not write songs all the same way and go through the same exact steps. If you always sit with your acoustic guitar, start playing chords, and then start improvising your voice over it, your songs are gonna all start to sound the same at some point. It's helpful to change it up. So if you're looking for something that's just gonna kickstart you and give you an idea of how to start writing a song right now, or if you're somebody who's a little more seasoned and just wants to break outside of your creative box, be sure to check out this free guide, link in the description. It's at songwritertheory.com/free guide. If you enjoyed this video and or you learned something from it, or it helped you to decide what instrument you should learn, be sure to drop a like. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, which I greatly appreciate. And also be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell if you're interested in learning more about songwriting and about arranging and lyric writing, because that is mostly what we talk about here. It's called Songwriter Theory for a reason. My mission is to teach you how to songwrite. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.